We're going to go back a little bit to a point so that this makes sense in the recording that she's wanting to make, because she feels it is beneficial for others who may be experiencing a similar type of situation. So we're going to include what we're saying, something that's going to be beneficial for others who are of a similar situation and place that you're in. It is in the time, space, place where you are existing in the darkest of the dark, that there is a specific patterns that are rewarded and encouraged and taught, and there are specific patterns and intuitions that are discouraged and belittled. If you have successive lives in such situations, these patterns become ingrained, not just the patterns of staying in distortion, but also the patterns of having disdain for things that are of a divine nature, but what you're seen as being hokey, no substance behind, and derided. You can see this in what occurred with what is considered witches, especially females. Female intuition is stronger when you are of the female nature, because, let us go off into a side point here, because the female of the species is able to carry another soul within her soul and to nurture it. There is a more direct spiritual link to divinity. Female intuition is true and accurate and should be listened to above all costs. Women are naturally wiser. The very nature of how they are made links them more directly to the divine flow of things, because a female has the opportunity to bring in another soul from the spirit side, nurture it, and form around it a physical body. This is a very high and difficult and spiritual calling. So female intuition is higher and more divinely connected. The society and the culture in which you are in has derided and dismissed feminine wisdom, in fact all wisdom, and connection to that which is divine. It has happened over consecutive lives, thus making these patterns part of the soul, because the souls are trained. Very much is it trained, much as people train a dog or another animal, which, by the way, we find repulsive and disgusting and causes much pain throughout all creation when an animal or a child is quote-unquote trained. It causes much pain because all it is just moving away from divinity. It's horrible. It is horrible. Yes, side points are going to be coming in. But along those lines, if a person is trained over successive lifetimes, they become ingrained in this distorted value system. They are rewarded for the more closely that they rely upon the pattern that is set before them and accepting the quote-unquote truths that are laid out, whereas anything that pulls you away from that system and into divinity is derided and dismissed as being hokey, dangerous. People laugh, scoff, and at times have even been known to murder and destroy anything related to that. Look at the native cultures. Look at the ones they call quote-unquote witches. Look at those who are, as they call them, they're tree huggers, that they are not held up and supported unless they compromise and enter into the patterns that have been held out. As a child moves through the school system, they are continuously and constantly rewarded, especially by the adults in the system, when they more strictly adhere and build off of this distorted and this distortion. It is the process by which people, the pattern they use of learning, of repetition, memorizing of facts, memorizing of patterns, repeating the patterns of others that have done this, and regurgitating it back forth them. There is not allowed, your ingenuity is still ingenuity only allowed within a certain and specific line or pattern. You cannot have ingenuity outside of that. So it's only when you take the parts and within the line that we have given you that you are allowed to have any inspiration, but anything outside of that is not encouraged or allowed. This results in having souls that whenever divinity does come to them, because this distorted pattern has become their soul, they always try to take that which is divine and put it into this pattern. They do not change their pattern to adjust to divinity. They try to adjust divinity to fit into their pattern. So you take divinity and try to put it into this pattern, make it follow rules, to flow in a certain specific guided way, then it becomes distorted and is no longer divinity. This is part of the problem that is being faced by all of creation, because as much light and beauty that God has brought into the darkness to bring it back into divinity, it distorts it and infects it. That is why there cannot be a different options for different souls, allowing souls to make different choices, or allow any of the distortions to continue. This is why the singularity was the only hope for the saving of all creation. Not just the universe of the soul, for the saving of all creation. Because the hungriness of the distortion was devouring more and more constantly. No matter how much light we threw into it or around it, it would just, the only way it would process it is to process it through the distortion. What does this mean on an individual level? On an individual level, it means that if you have a soul that has had these distortions, has moved through life's distortion, who has patterns, who knows how to put things together, and a part of them is very proud of how they are able to put things together, and they are proud, and their shoulders are back and their head is high, and they brag, look at how well I can do this. This is a dangerous thing for them because they are proud of the distortions, because they have been encouraged to be proud of the distortions. It is all that they have experienced as a way to get love and acceptance, is to be fully and more in these distortions. I am bringing forth in divinity, and I am bringing in overwhelming divinity, in which the distortions will not be able to distort. This is my own and deepest and strongest divinity. Let me explain this in comparison to, in general, divinity. When I've created a specific individual creation, at the moment that it becomes a unique creation, it has its own unique personality, its own unique divine light moving through it and around it. That divine light is connected and interacts with all other that is divine. And there is a unifying divine light and a surrounding divine light that helps to bind and build with and support all of my creation. You can think of it very much as though like fish in the ocean. There is water all around them that allows them to swim and to move and interconnect, so that there is divine light that helps all my creation to move and interconnect, and is always present there and available there to support and encourage them. They are never without it. They are never on dry land, so to speak. But there has been created a false, not false, they have contorted to create a dry land. The ocean and the water is still there, but they have created barriers around the souls on the edge of these distortions that makes their access to that divine light more difficult. When that divine, naturally ever-present divine light is brought into them, some souls are brought back to divinity, but some souls that are deepest in their distortions take in just enough of the divine light at a time to distort it. Now, this is how the way things have existed from the perspective of the souls. and much of creation, because this is not just in the universal soul, it is throughout all of creation. What is different in that is occurring at this time is that my own personal and unique, I will call it as you would understand it, energy or light that is mine personally and is not as diluted as the divine light that you have, that is around all that was created. I am moving through. I am bringing my own fullest divine light into all places and all situations. There is no resistance or distorting of that. My divine presence realigns everything back to fullest divinity. Anything that cannot be realigned back to fullest divinity immediately is pulled into the singularity, where it is basically put through the wringer and realigned, and the energy is, the individuality is removed. There is no more individual beings. There is no more thoughts. There are no more intentions. It is on the other side of the singularity, if you would like to call it that. We'll use that. It would be best to. It will be just pure light, pure divine energy that has been completely cleansed of everything, and then that is returned back into me. But everything that does that, all the individuality, all the thought, all the beliefs, through the process of the singularity, all of that is cleansed and removed. But as I am moving through creation more and more fully, this is occurring in a very natural way. It is not that I'm choosing, this will happen with this soul and this will happen with that soul. That is not what is occurring. It is like a natural process, in the sense that as I am there, this is what naturally occurs. You cannot reason or argue or make a point with, well, if I do this, I do that, what about this, and can I do that? There is no reasoning. Either you realign to that which is divine, or you go into the singularity. It is a physical type of automatic thing that just occurs. If a soul is determined to take which is divine and to try and process it through their distortions, this will take them into the singularity. And it's not that I'm choosing to put them into the singularity. This is what will occur. I cannot not come through and realign all to divinity, because if I do allow these distortions to continue anymore, everything is going to be lost. I will still exist. The Great Father, the Great Mother, and light will still exist. But everything else could be lost if I allowed any pockets of distortion to remain. I cannot do this. This is not a possibility. There is no, well, let me reason with you as to how we can do this. It cannot happen. This is what must happen. There is no other option or choice or way for this to occur. We tried the reasoning, but the reasoning was just as I was moving to this eventuality. We have recognized that divinity itself has a desire and call, and it is calling for the healing of all and everything. It cannot have anything that is not anywhere, nothing. So, how does this play out for the individual who has been existing as a soul with these specific patterns, and these patterns are part of the soul itself? And when anything new that is of the divinity that is coming in and trying to bring them back to divinity, and at this point, you must let go and allow everything that you value, everything that you try to understand, let it fall to the wayside. Do not try to make sense of it. Do not try to measure, organize, arrange it in a logical manner. We are far past that. There had been a time where you could have started on that path and allowed things to readjust, and they would, And if you had taken the opportunities when they were given to you and you allowed them to readjust. Now let me be very specific for those who are on Earth in this traveling space-time. We do not know what to call that. But anyways, during World War II, there was a great rumbling on your Earth time. There was a great rumbling, and you came to your point of decision making. And it was evident as to what was occurring. There's other things that are in play that were bigger and broader, but we're not going to go into that because that is not all known and understood by those in that time space of the other things that were involved in the bigger scope of the universe of the souls. We will deal just with what was experienced and can be seen and understood there from that perspective in which you are existing. There was a great push of darkness from all the political sides during what we would call World War II. Not just one or the other, from all the sides. There was a great tugging and tearing from all the political sides. In response to this, there was a desire that if it was not someone did not step in, humanity would not make it much longer. All the souls that were there on Earth and Earth herself would be brought to nothing but rubble. So there was a great effort put forward to bring in intense light, to bring in intense wisdom, to readjust, to try to readjust humanity back into a more divine path. There were opportunities given again and again. There was the giving of respect and equality to those of different races, those of different sexes, those of different attitudes. There was, and those to the earth itself and to nature itself. All these opportunities to be realigned back to divinity were put forward and done in a very profound way. But what did you do? In darkness, as these light divine elements were brought back in to help to realign, they were all co-opted and distorted and marginalized. Those that held to the purest divine paths were marginalized and pushed away. And then the ideas themselves were co-opted into mainstream in a way in which they became distorted. You had an opportunity in the 60s and 70s to bring an end to racism within one generation. You had an opportunity in the 60s and 70s to bring an end to sexism within one generation. You had an opportunity within one generation to bring an end to the financial divide that existed throughout the earth and to become a more harmonious and unified divine culture. You did not take this opportunity, and through the birth of subsequent souls who had been extremely dark and extremely aligned to distorted paths, the healing of all these areas in one generation has, to a large extent, shown that it would not have worked. There are some that have adjusted, some. But the majority of the darkest of the dark, so the majority of those most committed to these patterns, remain committed to those patterns. They have not released the patterns. They may adjust the outside icing or coating, but the pattern itself remains the same. If you want, at this particular point, it is time to let go of it all. I am afraid there's no, can we just adjust a little slower? No, we've already been giving it to you. We've been giving it to you since the 60s and 70s. And this is what you have done. You have not listened, accepted, or moved in this path. These ones that are so addicted to and so entrenched in these patterns are not going to ever release these patterns. They are not going to move to the light. I am moving in more and more fully. And as I come in more and more fully, those who are determined to keep these patterns will just naturally go into the singularity. There's nothing that is accomplished by what do I need to do. What you need to do is just stop, be quiet, and just let it happen. If something is pulled away, then let it be pulled away. If your world falls apart, then let it fall apart. Because if your world is falling apart, it is not divine. Even now, as it is falling apart, they are trying to make sure that somebody stays on top and ahead. Your work financial slave system is going to come completely crashing down and dissipate completely. There is not going to be a sense of employers, employees, jobs, school systems. This is all going to go away. It will never return. It will be seen as a cyanide, a quick-acting poison that destroys it. It will smell as though it is rotting flesh, and everything divine will be repulsed by it and will want nothing to do with it. So if you are determined to maintain these patterns, then you will be done away with as that. Now, I know that there are those that will say, well, this cannot be coming from God, because we know that God is love. And many of them say God does not judge. I do not judge in the way that is judged there, and you understand judging. But there is right and wrong, divine and not divine. That which is not divine is not there to help or support that which is divine. That which is not divine is like a cancer. And it is going to go away whether I come through and save some or I let everything fall away. It is going to go away. In my love, I must try to save as much and as many as I can. If I allow the process that is moving through to move through and to just have you destroy yourselves, the light would return back to me eventually, and I would be whole. But I love each and every one that I have created of my children. I do not want you to have to stop existing. There has been so much invested and so much love. I would miss you desperately. And I am greatly saddened that you are not responding to all of the love, all of the opportunities, and all of the beauty that I bring to you. It is about to get, from your perspective, those that are holding on to these distortions, and they are these distortions, from your perspective, it is going to get very, very messy. And once you start into the singularity, you are not going to have the ability to change that. It is not, I'm trying. If you have not already done it, just stop holding on. Stop trying to make sense of it. Because you can never, those in the distortion can never make sense of divinity. You cannot define it, you cannot measure it, you cannot control it. I am afraid that many of my children have been so long in the distortion that they do not even recognize me anymore. And much like a scared child, when I present myself, they resist because they do not recognize me and they are afraid. And this saddens me, because the pulling away was not done by me. And I will say that it was not done by my children either, directly. It was done, there were some that were of my children that have purposefully lied and separated me from many of the souls, and the souls from me. They went as a go-between, telling each side different stories, putting up complicated reasons, always pulling the children from me, always pulling me from my children, saying, oh no, they want independence to try and experience and grow in these ways. This is what they want, this is what they want, this is what they were telling to me. And they would explain things and show me things in a way, saying, yes, they are saying this, but this is what they're trying to do, and it's going to be what they're going to be created. It's going to be so beautiful. And at the same time, they're telling the children false narratives about myself and why I am not coming forward and acting to save them. They're saying, no, he's not acting yet because he's giving you time and opportunity to grow as an individual, because you have the law of free will on your side. And therefore you can decide this, and you need to do this in order to grow and become wiser. And so each one thought something great and beautiful was being created, even though divinity was saying it was not. We were not listening to divinity. We were listening to reasoning. I have come to despise reasoning, and how it has caused so much pain and heartache and destruction of so many souls in such painful and foolish ways. I am not holding back in any way at those who willfully encourage this process and who benefited themselves off of the backs of others. This is not going to be comfortable. It is not going to get more comfortable for you who are remaining in these patterns of distortion. If you want to be in the light, not just because you want to just save your souls long enough to go back to do whatever, you're going to have to remove and release all the patterns in a way that they can never be brought back. They can never be brought back. Those things that you held in high esteem and regarded with great pride about yourselves has to be released forever, to never more be reassembled. Only then can you be in divinity. It is not, I will do it for a little while, be in divinity, and then things will get better and easier for me. No. You cannot even get to divinity with these things there. Stop thinking with the patterns that you know. Stop reasoning with the patterns that you know. Stop assuming that you know the value system. I don't even really have a value system. It's just what is divine and what is not divine. There is no system. There is no pattern. Nothing you can measure and qualify and define. It just is or it isn't. And where you are isn't. Be also very careful of telling yourself the story. I did the best I could. I couldn't do any more. Woe is me. I'm trying so hard. It's just not good enough, because that is a lie. It's a lie on the soul level. Your souls have held to these distortions because they wanted to end on top. They wanted to end up high. When at the end they wanted to be just a little higher than somebody or something else. They wanted to get away with something. Now is the time for, and I will call it humility, even though humility is not necessarily anything to do with me or what I desire of in divinity, because there is no, humility is not a part of divinity anywhere, because it's like a foreign idea concept. It's not that we want humility or no, the opposite of humility, because neither one exists in divinity. But from the perspective of hierarchy, with which you are holding on to, there is going to have to do or experience or create, be in humility. Not a false humility, but you're going to have to give up and look with disgust at the patterns you have been holding on to, which can be most felt like humility, and allow divinity to pour through. I can give you no more than this. There are no more, but what about, but what about, but what about? Light, 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 light. And whenever you find yourself reasoning and thinking and I'm trying, stop it. I've done the best I could. Stop it. No, you didn't. You've chosen to do the best you could within hierarchy, which is disgusting. There is no best within hierarchy. Just release it all. Allow it to go away. Allow, if there is any divine spark still untainted within you, allow it to connect back with me and all that is divine, and then let it grow anew. When it grows anew, do not try to grow it in the patterns that you understand. What is going to have to grow has to grow in a way that's outside your understanding. The time for bridges or in between has already passed. There is no more bridges. There is no more in betweens. There is no more, how can I get from here to there? It is much like if you had a ramp. And the ramp started off at a place that would have been in the 60s and 70s, a nice, easily traveled incline. And as time progressed, slowly the ramp became steeper and steeper. Now it is a cliff face. Now it is a cliff face. And you must go from the top of the cliff and allow yourself to fall all the way to the bottom. And hope that when you land upon divinity, it'll be soft enough and you can survive. That is where you are. There is no ropes you can go down, no ladders, nothing you can do that allows you to remain holding onto the cliff and to get to divinity. You must totally release yourself from hierarchy and the beliefs and ideas and patterns that exist here and move fully into divinity. It is this extreme because that is what you have done because you would not release it. And I say that very specifically, you would not release it. I am explaining this to you clearly so that when you experience what you experience externally, internally, all this, understand that your path has become very uncomfortable, and it'll become even more uncomfortable. But it has become uncomfortable because, not because I didn't do anything, not because there wasn't opportunities. It is because this is the path you have chosen and created. And it becomes more and more difficult to get through it and survive. And that is only because of your choices from your soul level as to what you align with. I am very saddened by this. But there is no other opportunity, no other choice. There is no other path, no other what ifs. This is what this is. This is where you are.